All right. Hey, everybody, Jerome Maldonado. We got a special guest today, and I'm going to kind of let you guys in here in a minute. Um, Look, it's Real Talk on Real Estate, and it's Real Talk on Real Estate. It's Wednesday afternoon, and we have a special topic today, and we're really going to be talking about women in construction more than anything. And so, one thing that I wanted to do today is bring you guys a little update, and I want to make sure that you guys are following some of what we have going on. So we've been talking a lot lately about some of the projects we have going on in Washington State. We have a lot going on down in Phoenix. I'm going to be down in Phoenix tomorrow, and we got an office complex that we're working on buying down there, and we're renovating. And then we have the Kirtland project that we're doing, and we're working on doing a bunch of single-family homes, 24 units. And so I'm looking right now for some of the other stuff that we have. And then we have some stuff going on down in Puerto Rico, which we're ready to start building some more homes down there. Now, one of the big things is everybody is presumptuous that this industry, right, is in construction, real estate development is quote unquote a man's industry. And so I got a young lady. Her name is Tenika Deshawn. Hopefully I pronounced that right? Got it. Yeah. And so one of the big things is being able to bring somebody in. And I love bringing people into the show that are actually doing live and real things out in the industry. And so Tenika is a unique individual. And I'll tell you, what makes her so unique is that when you think of carpenters, you don't think of a woman being like a finished carpenter, a general contractor. And you know what's funny is that about 15 years ago, I met one of the sharpest women that I've ever met. And I'll tell you that I had no idea her affluent nature in the construction industry. And this woman was killing it. She owned a company called Vintage Homes, and she was a general contractor. And I'll tell you, she ran these subcontractors, most of these men like puppy dogs, because she had her system so set in place. And it had nothing to do with anything more than the fact that she was just so systemized and just did such an incredible job managing her business. And so when I met Tenika a few weeks ago, one of the things that captivated me when I heard Tenika talk and explain a little bit about what she was doing was the fact that she was really in the game, right? She wasn't talking about hoping to get in the game or wanting to be in the game. She was really in the game, and she's been in the game. And she's been doing renovations on homes, commercial properties, and she's been diversifying. And now she's getting into real estate investing as a means of another source of income. And not only is she doing that, and I'm going to let her kind of explain a lot of this stuff to you, but she's also helping other women do the exact same thing that she's doing. And so one of the big things is being able to bring somebody in that is really living, breathing, and doing it. And so if you could do me a huge favor, Tenika, and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, where you come from, what you're doing, and just give them a brief idea of what you have been up to for the last few years.
So my name is Tenika Deshawn. I own theladycarpenter.com. The Lady Carpenter right now is just me working and just showcasing my work. I hope to turn it into an online resource for any woman in construction or that needs construction, that has a construction need. So I own theladycarpenter.com. I fix houses. I also collect them. And I say collect because sometimes, I got started, I didn't have the credit or the finances to buy them. So I was able to use my relationships and present myself as the solution to the investors who had properties and, could no longer take care of them or maintain them or just didn't want them. And, I was able to set up, some seller financing and work with other private investors to get the money to put down on those properties. So, I've collected, houses over the last 3 years. And I hold on to them. My strategy is long-term buy and hold. So I allow my tenants to become homeowners if they want to. without going through the bank, because that's how I became an owner as well. So that's what I do. That's what I'm doing now. I got into carpentry trying to get into real estate. I, like I said, didn't have the money or the credit, and I had read in a book, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. The rich dad was telling the son, not to worry about getting a job for exactly what he can earn, but also what you can learn, and the person you want to become. So because I wanted to become an investor, instead of aligning myself with my, degree, which is in information science, I decided to align myself with the real estate investors and, tried to make myself valuable to them. So I started, doing things that they didn't want to do. I would hear them complain about something. I say, hey, can I help you with that? And I would go and, put my name on the on-call list for the weekend. And so the property managers would send me out and they would pay me $50 for responding to emergency calls in the middle of the night for gas lines or toilet leaks or anything that happens. I also did the open houses and signed leases, and then I got really good at that. And so when my children were small, I would work for property managers, just doing things that they didn't want to do, sitting in houses for hours for property management, for open houses. And that's how I began to build my network. Now, I was trying to survive at the time. I really didn't know that I would become the lady carpenter. I was just trying to follow the steps in the book and get close to the real estate investors, hoping it would rub off on me one day. And it did. And then I remember taking a call to go open the door, and I was meeting a guy there. And time to turn out, I had to pick up some envelopes from the property management company and take them with me, pick up the key and the envelopes. And one envelope had my name on it. The other envelope had his name on it. So I knew to give it to him once he got there. So I opened my envelope and it was my $50. I opened his envelope and it was $4,000. I'm like, well, how do I get checks like that? And so when he showed up, I asked him, I said, hey, what are you doing? And he said, I'm just going to put in some light bulbs and take care of some stuff. And I said, well, hey, I want to do that too and get $4,000 checks like him. I realized that, now that I'm a contractor, that was probably his final check, and he had done a lot more work than just put in light bulbs. He was probably just there to touch up and do a few things. But that sparked my interest in learning how to fix things. I said, hey, if I learn how to fix things, I could fix my credit. I could make enough money to buy the real estate and get financing. And also, I would be able to identify quality repairs I wouldn't get taken advantage of by other contractors. And I set out to learn how to fix stuff.
Yeah. So there was a couple things that I caught in there that I want to go back up to. And one of them was that you were doing things that most people didn't want to do. And what's funny is I owned a ton of Subway stores for a lot of years. And I used to tell the employees there that I said, look, this is Subway, right? Like I understand that this is not like your career that you're going to be at forever. And you're not going to hang your hat and say, hey, I work at Subway. But I would tell them, and I tell my kids this, I said, everything that you adapt as far as qualities and work ethic right now today is going to follow you for the rest of your life, because life is not a light switch. I tell them, you just don't like suck at everything forever. And then all of a sudden put on a light switch and say, okay, I'm going to be great today. Right. It's one of those things that it's adaptation, like where you go in and you adapt to being great at all that you do. And so it's a great stepping stone for people. I used to tell them, and I said, the work ethic and what you give me here is going to be a reflection of what you do the rest of your life in a different field, right? And so I tell my kids the same thing. And so it's so funny because so many people hate doing what you did to become successful. And I tell people, oh my God, I told my niece when she became an attorney, go scrub toilets if you need to, just get in the damn law firm and intern. Because if you do that, you're in. If you work hard, then you're doing it. Now she's an attorney in Malibu, California. She's killing it.
Nice.
29 years old, and she's just killing it. She's done good because she literally went in entry level and she did things most people don't want to do. Expand on that a little bit, because I think it's important for listeners to understand that you don't start at the top, but you can get to the top if you're willing to do what most people are not willing to do.
I mean, I had to, I had no network, I had no knowledge, I had no money, I had no credit. What I did have was time and energy. So, I used what I had, and that's what I had. My children were small, and I needed a job that provided flexible hours where I could, take them with me. I mean, $50 wasn't a lot of money then, but what was my other option? To go work in a department store for 8, 9, $10 an hour. I made $50 in 30 minutes instead of, 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours. So, and I had my children with me. So it ended up working out. And these other people didn't want to do it because 50, they have a salary job, plus they have the residual income from their investment properties. Them throwing me $50, it was nothing to them. And so it worked out for me. It just worked out. I mean, I did other things. I worked at night as a cleaning lady. I did mystery shopping. I worked in a chocolate factory at night. I babysat, other people's children, when they wanted to go on a date night or go out for the weekend. I braided other girls' hair. We have a lot of hair, and hair braiding is really big in my community. I did other things, but as far as aligning myself with the real estate and construction, I used that strategy out of that book, and would listen to Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar in the background while I was sitting there for hours waiting for somebody to show up. My children, we listened to an audiobook called The Dream Giver. It's not The Go Giver, it's The Dream Giver, that was given to me by one of my mentors here locally, Dr. Herring, Dr. Charles Herring. So we would listen to that book in the car, and they loved it. So it was, we did some mindset, and mental work as well. And so at that time, I needed money. It wasn't nothing to think about. I just had to get up and do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I keep hearing you talk about mentors, and the mentors come in a lot of different ways. And it's one thing that I did for many, many years in early years. In fact, when I started in 1993 in business, I met a mentor of mine that at the time I didn't even know what a mentor was in business. He became a very affluent mentor of mine, and was so all the way up until 1997. And there's different types of mentors. I wouldn't call him like a life mentor in regards to like relationships and stuff like that, because he was horrible at that. But business, sales, mindset, stuff like that, he was just incredible at. And I inundated myself with a ton of audio stuff, audio books and audio tapes that just had a ton of different business relationships. And so much so that I remember when Puff Daddy was real big, P. Diddy, right?
Yeah.
P. Diddy. Well, it was funny because I remember calling home, and I remember calling an old friend and asking, hey, what are you guys doing this weekend? And she was like, oh, we're going to go down to a Puff Daddy concert, P. Diddy concert. And I was like, P what? And I didn't even know who Puff Daddy and P. Diddy, I didn't know who he was. And she's like, oh my God, have you been living in a box? And I was like, kind of, and I'd literally go to bed every night, listening to a little tape recorder, and I press, and I go to bed, listen to that, and I wake up to it. And in my vehicle, that was all that was in there, was cassette tapes with mentor stuff. And people ask, they say, they go, oh, it's so admirable, or you got so lucky. And I said, well, it wasn't quite like that in the beginning. And so I ruined my credit as well. And it took work to get it back up. And I'll tell you, I think that was one of the hardest things for me when I first started out, especially when I was getting into real estate, was I started in business, I started making money, but even when I started making good money, my credit was so bad because I got it down into like the high 400s. I had 26 lines of bad credit. And when I first started out, and I drove myself over $106,000 in debt. And to some people in this day and age, that may not sound like a lot, but in 1995, that was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money. It was a lot of money back then. So much so that I thought I was never going to dig out of it. But I was able to do it. And I was able to dig out of it a lot quicker than I thought I was, positioning myself with the right people. and in making money makes a big variance in that. What was your experience? And I think this is important for people to understand, because I think so many people battle from that. You know, they make bad mistakes when they're growing up,
Yeah.
and youthful, they ruin their credit, and it's not the end of the world. You know, you can
No.
fix that and move forward. Tell a little bit about how you structured your first deal, how you fixed your credit a little bit, just to give people a real life idea of what you did and how you made that twist to get to where you're at now.
Right. My first deal came. Um, I had gotten a call to check out a property, and they wanted an estimate for repairs. And also at that time, unfortunately, I was having a rough time in my marriage, and so I was looking for a place to stay. Also, so it was a lot going on at that time, and so I went to give this lady a repair estimate, and the cost of the repairs were more than the value of the house. She said, "Well, the house ain't worth that much." I said, "I'm sorry, you got a stone building with a lot of concrete or surrounding it. It all needs fixed. That's the estimate. You're welcome to get some more quotes if you want, but that's I can't do anything for less than that." And she, said, "Hey, can you just take the property? I don't even want to deal with it." Like, she was just so devastated, at the repairs. And, she had owned that home for over 20 years. She lived there, and then she moved away, and she had a relative living there, and they weren't paying the rent, and it was just going downhill. She was older, and she just couldn't deal with it. So that was my first deal. It turned out, she talked to a relative or someone. We agreed on the price of $8,000 for the property. And she allowed me to make payments. And I went and signed a lease with the existing tenant and put her on a month to month, saying, if you don't pay, you got to go. And, the tenant paid off that mortgage, that I had on it. So I actually, yeah, that I had on it. So that was my first deal, just having a conversation with the owner about how I could present myself as a solution to her and help her out, and keep her relative off the street, out the street. Because somebody else would have bought it, they would have definitely cleared that house out. But I worked it out, and it worked itself out. It was a win-win-win for everybody. So that was my first deal. About my credit, I actually avoided the situation for a long time. I didn't understand money. I didn't understand credit, and it was overwhelming to me. And then when I did start to work on it, the emotional response that I got from facing my financial past was very surprising to me. I had to come face to face with the fact that I was financially illiterate. I had a bank account. I did not read it. I didn't check my checking account. I kind of guessed, how much money was in there from day to day, often overdrawn the account. So it required me to deal with myself and my mindset around money. I didn't understand it. I didn't respect it. I didn't use it properly as a tool. So I had to start with myself. And one thing that I did was I took a bank statement. I sat down. I went line by line and tried to remember what I spent that money on. I put it all in categories and said food, travel, gas, stuff for the kids, stuff for the house, work, and I went through it, and I cried. I actually had a meltdown because that was the first time I had ever done that. And I called one of my friends and I sent her a picture of my bank statement, and I said, "This is the first time I've ever looked at one of these and went line by line. I just wanted you to share this moment with me." And she did. She honored me, and she said, "Congratulations." And so it was embarrassing. It was tough. But you know what? There are other people in that situation. I share that story to say, hey, if I can do it, you can too. And you got to start somewhere. And most times we have to start with ourselves, with our mindsets. And from then on, I learned about, again, went back to that Robert Kiyosaki book. He talks about, actually his cash flow quadrant, I think. He talked about the balance sheet. He talked about the profit loss statement. So I went back and I, tried to do a personal financial statement about listing out my assets and my liabilities. And I found out that I had a positive net worth. It made me feel good, you know. So, you know, I had acquired these properties and they were, you know, some of them were cash flowing. I got rid of one that wasn't. But because I started looking at those reports and started educating myself on my financial position and what I look like on paper, it I was able to educate myself. I started reading books, started listening to you know, financial podcasts. I started like, you know, Googling things that I didn't understand. I just started every day. I just decided to learn something new. And every day I looked at that bank account, even it doesn't change, but what it does is it affects the decisions I make every day, how I deal with my time, materials, and who I hire on my jobs, you know. And so me understanding the financials actually helped me with my decision making in the day to day, and it helped me out as a survivor. I was used to surviving. I was used to just getting through the day.
Oh, we lost her. Okay. Just,
She had a poor connection.
yeah, you know what? Just go ahead and get, oh, there she coming back in.
If you could elaborate what she's saying, because the audio is very super low.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah. So is this are we picking this up through Zoom? Because we're going to probably have to repost this through Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom
and then put it back.
external,
Yeah.
both ways.
We'll probably have to do it, reload this and edit it and put it back up. But let's,
Can you hear me?
yes,
Hear me?
we can.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
That's okay. I'm going to
But yep, that's what I did. I just started educating myself.
yeah. No, you know what? I think it's incredible just for people to relate to that. Tenika, and one of the big reasons why is there's so many people. One of the biggest problems with people, biggest reasons people don't invest in real estate and they don't even go out and aspire to get involved in in business and stuff is because they don't think they have the money to. And I'll tell you that construction saved my rear end, because what I did when I first started in construction back in, and I remember when I opened up in 1998, I went through a big downfall. I was making about $200,000 a year, and I went to zero overnight when the FTC came in, was restructuring direct sales companies, and I was left with no income. And the reason that construction saved me was because people have to understand this. One, you have to have your motives right, and you have to have your foresight. Your heart has to be in the right place. Your mind has to be in the right place, and your delivery of what you're selling has to be in the right place. And there's a stigma in construction that people are uneducated and that they're going to rip you off, right? And so I thought to myself in the early years, I said, look, I'm going to create. I had just graduated from pharmacy school a few years prior, and I'll tell you that I figured if I could create a white collar atmosphere in a blue collar business and run it like a white collar professional, that I would attract white collar professionals and it'd make my business affluent. But with that point being, I went back out there and I said, look, I could take a 50% deposit on a project. And as long as I delivered the services that I promised, I could get paid what was mine on the second end. So I was able to start a business with no money, take other people's money, and I was able to deploy it for materials and labor. And I'd make nothing initially, and I was able to go out and then I would rush through the projects, not rush through them in a bad way, but I systematically put systems in place where I was able to get through the projects efficiently. So it helped me cut back on my wasted time, and I was able to get a paycheck. And then from that, I was able to just live on as a minimalist because I had already been doing that, and then do it again with another project. And I was just working through projects like that, 50% down, second half upon completion, 50% down, second half upon completion. And then all of a sudden I started making the $4,000 checks you were talking about instead of the $50 checks. And really quick, the numbers grew, and I was able to start doing commercial stuff. And I was able to go in my first house. I put $75,000 down payment on it because I had to. on a $225,000 purchase. Otherwise, I won't get financed. And then when I went for a commercial purchase, I went in with a big down payment. And just like you, the first property I ever saw that I was going to buy, that was a commercial property. It was an estate that the gentleman who owned it worked as an engineer, didn't know anything about real estate. His dad was the real estate guy, but his dad passed away, and he had this asset now, or liability in his case, and it was empty. It was just a building that was shut down. The pigeons were infiltrating it, and it was just distressed. And he goes, you know what? I'll owner finance it for you. I just don't want it and I'll give you the 3-year note on it. And I went to work on the property through the means of owner financing, no credit needed. And I gave him a down payment. And from that one building, then I was able to refinance that thing once it stabilized. And I started slowly climbing out of this hole I had created and started paying off the old bad debt a little bit at a time. And I was able to negotiate all of that bad debt, almost like 50% on the dollar, and just started making payments to people. But I didn't go out and buy expensive cars. I wasn't going out and living in a lavish home. I lived in a little mobile home. I lived in a trailer for a little bit, paying like $200 a month in rent. And I had several hundreds of thousands of dollars saved before I went off and bought a home. And I created a strong foundation in my business. And I already owned a few pieces of real estate. And that's how I got out of the debt deal. So very similar to what you're talking about. And so I sit back and now I look back 20 some odd years later and go, damn, I look back and I'm appreciative for the experience, but it's been a great ride. I'll tell you, it's been a great ride.
I can definitely relate. For me, access to capital, was a challenge. And like I said, my financial education wasn't there. Not to, now we're talking about business credit. I had no clue, what that was and how to get access to it, how to have a conversation with, commercial lenders and valuing, the revenue in my business. I had no idea. So access to capital is an issue for, small businesses and especially, minorities. But like you said, with the construction, getting that access to cash, getting those down payments up front, knowing, that, the job actually becomes your lifestyle, so you kind of like living off of the work. I went through that phase too. And now that I understand, I was a good worker. So that allowed me to live off of my jobs. And now I'm learning about, being a businesswoman and a CEO. And now, I'm actually like trying to learn, do a better job running and streamlining the organization so that I can create safe work environments for other people. I can definitely relate to that transition. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why we're really here today, is because of that. What you just said, I'm trying to learn how to be a CEO and run my business, my corporation, which is great. I know that you're moving on to bigger things, being out there slinging a hammer and being the lady carpenter is a great place to start for so many people. There's nothing wrong with starting there, because we've all started there, and it made a lot of money for me. And I know it's made a lot of money for you, and it's been life-changing for you and your kids. And so I admire that. But what I admire even more is your gracious attitude and saying, hey, I'm not stopping there. I'm continuing to grow. And that's really the reason that I brought you on here today, because I want you to share with people, where you're moving towards. I know that one of the things you had asked me about, and you had talked to some of the other folks that we were with that evening on Clubhouse, that you were talking about aspiring into growing into larger asset holdings and investing into bigger deals. And so share with us, what are your goals and what type of assets do you want to grow into? And what are you working towards right now? What is the Lady Carpenter working on right now on moving towards?
So the Lady Carpenter is going to become more of a resource. I have another company, Black Diamond Renovations, and powered by the Lady Carpenter. So that company will do a lot of the employing, a lot of the construction and renovations, and Lady Carpenter will become more of a resource. We're going to be doing events and speaking and, having an online resource center showcasing, other Lady Carpenters around the world. But as a business, as a company, we're going to specialize in renovations that provide safe, affordable housing, whether it's, single family home, residential, or multifamily, commercial. We want to provide the type of renovations and repairs, rehabs that can provide safe housing for family. It's not enough to, just to have housing and to be affordable. The affordable housing needs to also be safe. And there are, companies, because of budgets, they cut corners, but you can, um, mitigate that with the level of skill and insight. Okay. The knowledge level that we bring to the table. We're EPA certified by the federal government. We are lead abatement certified. We specialize in, waterproofing to to cut down on the mold and the water vapor and stuff that gets trapped inside the walls of the houses. And we specialize in certain types of, flooring and materials that we can use in the homes to, decrease, um, pollution in the air and people with asthma. We can also do, specialized renovations for people with disabilities, and make the home safer for they can live a more independent lifestyle. Also, the elderly also, we can do modifications to the home so that they can stay in their homes longer and extend their quality of life. So, we are looking at how do we become valuable to the communities that we work in. And where the area that I'm in, we have a high demographic of elderly and people with disabilities. So, specializing in that work, I think, is a very strategic move, on my end to make sure that I stay relevant and stay valuable to the industry. Now, as far as my asset holdings, I've gotten very comfortable rehabbing houses. And so one of the opportunities that I have is to get into development. So I'm excited about that, doing larger projects. So I'm weighing my options. Do I continue rehabbing and remodeling houses and streamline that and just get really quick and efficient with my systems? Or do I, stretch myself over into this other arena and partner up with some people to do some developments? And there may be an opportunity to do both. I may stay in my comfort zone for a little bit and stack some cash, and then make the leap when I get a little bored. But I'm just grateful right now, that the last 15 years are starting to pay off, and I'm able to become the woman that I dreamed of being and be a great example for my three daughters of what's possible. Even when you start with, what some people would call nothing.
Yeah. So the lady carpenters, all the lady carpenters, I love that. We're doing a lot of development. And we've done a lot of development for a lot of years. So you ready for the problems and the stress and stuff that comes along with it?
Like I said, I might stay in my comfort zone for a minute. I might stay in my comfort zone for a little while, but I'm definitely exploring my options, and I'm looking at you guys, what you book, and it's very tempting. I adventure. That's got where I am, but me being older and my children, getting ready to. Yeah, I have one girl getting ready to go into her senior year of high school and eventually college, out into the world. I might consider staying put for a while until they're well on their way, and then I could flex a little bit. But I have found my stride. I found a niche. I found a sense of purpose, and I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm kind of enjoying it.
So there was something that you said earlier, and that I'm going to relate to what you just said now with your daughters and time and so forth. And I want to kind of talk about this a little bit, because there's three things. There's three things that people need to become successful in any business, but real estate is one of those businesses in development and any aspect of investing. And so if you have, well, a mentor told me years ago, Tenika, he said, Jerome, if you have two of the three, you can become successful in anything you do. He said, success revolves around money, right? You need money, you need time, and you need contacts. Okay. And with two of the three, you can get wealthy in any industry. And so if you don't have money, you utilize other people's money to become wealthy, and you utilize your time and your contacts, and you can go out and find these. So one thing that I've been good at is one, creating contacts. You know, I'm a networking, I like saying I'm a networking fool. I love meeting people, and it's through my network of people that I've been so great at meeting that has really been a big asset. Now, time has always been my issue because I have so much going on, but we've always been able to bring capital to the table. But not only, you know, because I did the opposite of what you're talking about right now, where I created a cash hog of a business that was able to help me get into development. I was able to utilize my own capital to start developing, but that was a hindrance in my growth because I could have grown so much more if I would have used other people's money in earlier years. So 3 years ago, we sat back and said, you know what, let's scale this thing. I want to do this for 10 more years, and I'm going to scale this thing, and we're going to use other people's money, and we're going to bring them in to our contact base, and we're going to put the time in. We're going to do those two, and we're going to bring other people's money in. And so, hence, for your sake, you go in and say, look, I'm the lady carpenter. I'm a badass, because you are, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to work these deals. I'm going to find them, you know. And I know you're resilient. I know you're persistent, because you wouldn't have had the success that you've had to get from where you were to where you are without it. And you start exercising your contacts and your networking abilities, which I also know you have, and you start utilizing other people's money, because if they believe in Lady Carpenter, and we know you can do what you did with your Lady Carpenter business and with the investments that you've already purchased on a bigger scale with commercial stuff, then people will invest with you. And so one of the biggest things is utilizing other people's money to allow you to grow. And that's where a lot of people cut themselves short, and they just feel like, well, I don't have the experience. And that is an issue. So going out, getting that experience so that you're taking that step, so you start getting experience. And experience doesn't have to come with a deal. Experience can come with just underwriting stuff, looking at deals, working side by side on other people's deals. And again, going back to the foundation where you started, going out and giving of your time to be a part of something when you're making less than you will later, but you're learning. And so what most people would not want to do, and making yourself a part of somebody else's deal, you learn by doing it with them once, twice, 3 times maybe, and then you go do it by yourself. And now you have the knowledge base, you have the confidence, and you have the ability to be able to lure other people's money in to work with you because you know what you're doing. So, I'm excited to have you working a little with us, and I'm excited to see how we can broaden that and help you get into the development aspect of the business, and share with you a little bit more about what we've been doing for 25 years now, and be able to take that and help you streamline it on a woman's perspective. Because what I love most, like every year at Real Estate Domination, which a lot of people are familiar with our Real Estate Domination event, is we always have an outreach of men, right? But I always halt and I say, you know, I can't just have a bunch of incredible men on stage. And so I'm always seeking out incredible women that have done real life stuff. And I always pride myself on the fact of saying, look, I don't go out and look for speakers. I look for great individuals that have real life experience. And I've even had someone come to me and say, Jerome, I've never spoke on stage before. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I say, you know what? You're going to do fine, because you have a real story. All you need to do is tell your story, you know, and tell people what you've been doing. And they have enhanced. We've gotten nothing but raving reviews in regards to the people and the platform that we're doing. So, I mentioned it to you earlier. We do it every November. We always have a lot of little real estate domination events throughout the year, but our big one is always the first week of November. And so we're excited to have invited you, and I'm hoping that you take that invite and run with it with us. And we get you on stage in real life. And if COVID allows us, we're going to go full stream in Las Vegas, Nevada, like we were supposed to do last year. We had it set up at the MGM Grand. We haven't negotiated a location yet, but I think we're going to do an M Life property, and it'll probably be something like the MGM or something comparable to that the first week in November. So we're going to start working on that this June, and we'll start promoting it this June. So
that'd be great. That'd be great. I'm happy to, connect with you guys. And like I said, I'm looking forward to working with you guys and learning as much as I can from you. This is a good position to be in. I'm so grateful that, you guys have met the Lady Carpenter. The Lady Carpenter is getting seen. And, it is my mission over the next 10 years to make Lady Carpenter a household name so that, when young women and little girls are asked, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Lady Carpenter is now an option. It's now an option because, I'll take you up on your opportunity to get on your YouTube channel, to get on your stage and just share my story of how I became the Lady Carpenter. And then the next step is to get Lady Carpenter beyond me. How do we take this to the world and allow other women the gift of becoming empowered and becoming a change agent, not just for themselves and their family, but the community, and getting out here and making a name in the marketplace for themselves as well.
Yeah. And so I want you to expand upon that a little bit, because one thing that I was going to lead into right now as we kind of get ready to wrap up here is the fact that, one thing that I just love most about what you're doing is the fact that you're creating a platform, not only for yourself to build on. What's real important for people to understand, the viewers to understand, is that, and I'll go into this kind of saying this, I read an article about 6 months ago where it was a comparison between how many people have enrolled in medical school, how there was a shortage of people enrolling in medical school, and the expense of what medical school takes and the time it takes to go through medical school, and how the trades, and they compared it specifically to plumbing, but the trades in general, a lot of blue collar trades, how more people have become plumbers and CEOs of plumbing companies that are going to medical school. And they did the breakdown of the average medical professional, physician coming out of college, and their debt versus income, and the average CEO of plumbers in the same comparison, and what their debt is and what their income is. And it is skewed substantially, where back in the day, it was like, it was so prideful to go become a medical professional, become a physician, you get paid affluent and all this stuff. Well, the insurance companies now run the world. It's not the doctors anymore. And so the plumbers won by like a 3-to-1 scale over the medical field and physicians. And it's just become, there's more people, more young millennials going out to become plumbers than they are becoming doctors, and their income and their debt is significantly lower, and their income is equal to or greater than what a medical professional is in a physician. And the stress level, I'll tell you, I've lived both. I worked in hospitals when I was doing my intern rotations, super stressful job, especially if you work, I don't know, they're all stressful. I worked retail, stressful, worked clinical, stressful, and I even worked ER, even more stressful. And then construction, real estate, it's stressful, but I can turn it off. And at the end of the day, my income is substantially more than I think in the mass majority of any physicians make. Maybe there's a few really high level surgeons that make what we make, but I'll tell you, it's a great place to be. And for you to be able to create a platform where you could say, hey, women, you're not excluded from this. You too have the same ability to do what any man does in this industry, because I'll tell you that some women in this industry, not all of them, but there's a mass majority of women in here that are doing better than a lot of the men. And it's the female-owned construction companies, development companies, where women are making their presence in this market. So to be able to have something like Lady Carpenter, where you can say, hey, women, come join the forces, I'm going to teach you how to do it, is priceless. Expand on that a little bit more before we end today.
A couple years ago, I was interviewed by a local TV reporter. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's where I'm headquartered. And she asked me a couple questions about becoming a Lady Carpenter and getting involved with real estate and construction. And I flat out told her, I've never felt this level of financial confidence ever in my life. And I just want to share that with other people. I'm a mom. I have the confidence now that I can for sure, take care of my children and provide for, all of their needs, no matter what. And I didn't have that confidence before. I always felt like, I would need someone else to help me care for them. Or, if I were to go to work or get a job, I need somebody to babysit them and watch them. If I wasn't working, then I would have to, take from someone else to care to properly provide for them. As a lady carpenter, I set my schedule. I decide what jobs and who I want to work with. You know, um, I set my, my end of my day, my vacations. I take them when I want to. I decide if I want to make more money or if I've had enough. And then when my children say, "Hey, mom, we have this idea," and I can say, "Hey, go for it," or I can sit them down and say, "Okay, what's the cost of materials? How many people do you need to pull this off? Who are your resources?" I I have the level of confidence and knowledge now to have those types of conversations with them, and also to provide a quality of life that you know I can confidently tell them that they can achieve anything. And if they come up with a crazy idea, they want to try an experiment, it's like, okay, yeah, go for it. And that's what we do. I don't ever want my limitations to stifle their potential. And being in this arena, being in this field as an entrepreneur allows me the freedom and the leverage to be able to give them the quality of life that I feel that they deserve. And it allows me to be the type of example of, like you said, resilience and what's really possible. And being a lady carpenter is about being a woman in this industry. I'm not trying to be a man. I'm not trying to replace anybody. We make this industry our eyes and ears and our heart to the game. And it's exactly that. It's a game. And once like we cause everybody to level up. Because if I outwork you, then you're here for it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that, me being out here and doing what I do, it gives me, financial confidence. It gives me, personal confidence. And, one of the things that I struggled with early on was my sense of value, my sense of worth. Now, there's no question that I bring value and that I deserve to take up space just like the next person.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that it's incredible to see such a strong person from where you started and to where you are today. And Tenika, it's refreshing to see somebody of uh, of your personality
Sorry
and
about
your
that. I
heart
don't know why we
space.
keep getting disconnected.
Oh, it's okay. That's okay. They didn't even know I was talking. I knew you'd come back in. And so I was going to recognize it for a few seconds here. But what I was saying is it's amazing to have somebody of, from where you came from, and to be a woman from where you came from, to be where you're at today, even though it's not where Tenika wants to be, ultimately, because I know you're like the rest of us that are motivated and the game is fun. It's a fun game. It becomes bigger than money. And what you're doing, your outreach is incredible. What you're doing in your community and the business plan that you have to, put together, I think is real important for people to recognize. As I heard you talk earlier, you talked a lot about what you're doing in the outreach for the type of clients that you're dealing with, the elderly. Being able to make things ADA compliant and just having a business plan and a business model set in place where I think a lot of people fail because they don't know that. They don't know who their customer is. They don't know who they're serving. And it's so important that when they're going into this stuff, when you can really go in and unfold a business plan where you know who your demographics are, you know who you're serving, you can really go in and create something massive. And so to hear you unfold all this stuff, it's a lot of what I talk about and teach people. That's some of the most important aspects of being successful in the business. And to hear that you have a lot of that set in place is really, really cool. And so, Tenika, you're awesome. You're amazing. And I'm super glad that I brought you on the show today on Real Talk on Real Estate. how do people find you? If they want to find out more about Lady Carpenter and Tenika Deshawn, how do they find you?
They can find me at theladycarpenter.com. We're also WBE certified. So I'm in a lot of the databases that list minority contractors. Facebook, The Lady Carpenter. Instagram, The Lady Carpenter. Also Tenika Deshawn on Facebook, Instagram. Yep, and just Google The Lady Carpenter or Tenika Deshawn.
I love that. Oh, Tenika, you've been awesome. Your story's amazing. I love you. I thought you were here in real life. I'd give you a big, fat, huge hug right now. I'm proud of you more than anything. I love your story. I'm proud of what you've done and what you're doing. And I love your aspirations. And I know you're going to be successful moving forward. And I know it's just a matter of time. I'm really excited to see where you're at in 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Most people, it scares me to think of where they're going to be in 5 years from now. And I'm excited to see where you're going to be in 5 years from now. So ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. Go to Tenika Deshawn, Deshawn is how you spell her last name. TenikADeshawn on Instagram. Pound that follow button. You're going to want to follow this woman. It's not every day that you meet. I meet a lot of dynamic women, most of them working jobs, which there's nothing wrong with. But women that are making movements, I don't meet every single day. Reminds me a lot of my mom. My mom was like that in the nonprofit world. That very admirable, very respectful, and I'm just proud to know you and excited to see what your progress is over the next 5 years. And so thank you for taking the time to join us on Real Talk on Real Estate today. And I look forward to having you on Real Estate Domination in November. People are going to want to come and hear your outreach. And it's going to be fun to even hear where you've gone from today until November here in 2021. So we're excited for it. Any last minute words before we depart?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you calling me out and pulling me out of my comfort zone and putting me on your YouTube. This is great. And I'm so appreciative of all the encouragement and inspiration, advice and education that you provided. And I look forward to working with you guys. Thank you so much for this opportunity to get Lady Carpenter out into the world. I appreciate it.
Well, we're excited to have you, and we're excited to have you a part of what we're doing. So for all of you guys tuning in, thank you guys for joining in on Real Talk on Real Estate. And again, Tenika, thank you so much. You guys go out and make it a great day, and never forget, go out and compound your success. Have a great evening, and God bless.